Hi everyone, it's Kathy, and I am super excited to be participating in the Anything Goes hop hosted by Courtney Krieber. And the purpose of this hop is to boost channels that are very close to reaching the 1,000 subscriber milestone. I'll have a link to the person who's next up in the hop in the description box below. And if you get lost along the way, you can hop on over to Courtney's channel. There will be a link to her channel as well, and she'll have a full list of participants. Anyway, today I'll be creating a Slimline card using the Hap B stamp set from Paperie ink and the Marquee Slimline die from Whimsy stamps. I started out by stamping the flowers a bunch of times onto a piece of Cougar super smooth cardstock, and I am using Catherine Pooler's Midnight ink. This is a new to me ink pad, and I thought I'd give it a shot. And I really like how crisp and clean it stamps out these images. And again, I had mentioned in my previous Hap B video how much I love these stamps. They're a great high quality stamp. If you haven't had a chance to see that video, I'll make sure to link to it at the end of this video. Anyway, moving on to the coloring, I am only going to show you how I colored 3 of the flowers. So I started with the smaller flower, and I started out with V05. I added that into the areas where they would be the darkest. Now, V05 is not my darkest color, but because I tend to get carried away with my darkest colors, I decided to start with my midtone. So after the V05, I blended that out a little bit with V01, and I just extended the flick marks from the center of the flower towards the tip of the petals, but I did leave quite a bit of white space at the tip of the petals. Then I came in with my darkest color, which is V15, and I used that very sparingly and concentrated that mostly around the center of the flower, as well as around the petals if they were overlapping one another, just to get a little bit of separation between those petals. And my husband just dropped something. I'm not sure quite what that was. So pardon the background noise. And from there I went in with V00, and instead of flicking from the center of the flower out to the tips of the petals, I flicked from the tips of the petals down to the center of the flower. That way I didn't blend out the darkness that I had achieved around the center of the flower. Anyway, moving on to the big flower, I used the same colors as I did on the small flower, but the shading on this one is a little bit different because some of the petals are curved up and kind of curled over each other. So again, I started with the V05 and added that down towards the center of the flower, and then for the petals that are kind of flopped over, I added the V05 on the outer bottom edge and then underneath the top of where it flops over on the petal that is underneath itself, if that makes any sense at all. Then I came in with the V01 and did the same thing. I extended the flick marks a little bit further, but left a lot of white space up at the tip of the flowers, and then came in with my darkest, the V15, to add in some even darker shadows. And then I came in with the V00 and again flicked from the tips of the petals towards the center of the petals. For the center of the flowers, I used Y08 and Y13, and I concentrated the Y08 on the small flower. I concentrated the Y08 along the bottom of the center of the flower, and then I left the top part and the middle white so I could blend that out with the Y13. On the larger flower, I did the Y08 all the way around the edge, again leaving the center of the flower, the middle of the center of the flower white, so I could blend that out with the Y13. So for the other small flower, I stayed with purple colors, but I just went down and made them a lot lighter. So for the light purple combination, I started with V01 and added that towards the center of the flower, flicking out towards the edge of the petals. Then I came in with the V00 and flicked out even more. And then my darkest color for this one is V12. And I did the same thing, concentrating that around the center of the flower and then next to the petals where the petals would be overlapping. And I colored the center of the flower with the same Y08 and Y13. Next, I decided to stencil a cloudy sky to go behind my Whimsy Stamps Slimline die, which it's the Marquee Slimline die. And I figured something out with the Trinity Stamps Slimline rectangle die fits perfectly behind the Whimsy Stamps Marquee Slimline die. So no measuring on my part, because I am not a measure twice, cut once type of gal. I am a measure once and cut as many times as you need to. So that made it really easy for me because the smallest Trinity Slimline fits perfectly behind that Marquee die. Anyway, I used It's a Boy Catherine Pooler ink and an ink blending brush with a cloud stencil that I've had in my stash forever, just to ink blend some clouds onto that panel. I set that aside and then I stamped one bee because I had the other bees already colored and cut out, but I did want to show the coloring again for this video as well. And I started with Y19 and concentrated that on the outer edges of his face, and then at the bottom of his face, like right above the first black line. After the Y19, I came in with Y08 and blended that out a little bit, and I made sure to leave a nice center highlight in the center of his face and all of his stripes, and I filled the yellow in with the Y13. For his stripes, I started with BV25 and again concentrated that color on the outer edges of his stripes and blended towards the center to make sure that I had a nice highlight in the center. I blended that out with BV23 and then I colored his wings in with BG10 and BG quadruple 0. I did fussy cut all of the images, all of the flowers, and all of the bees. And even though these bees are so small, they're still pretty easy to cut as long as you move your scissors more than your cardstock. And no, that's backwards. Move your cardstock more than your scissors. And I wasn't too concerned about getting a perfect cut. I did try to leave a little bit of a white border around, mostly because I didn't want to cut off his little antennae. So after I was done fussy cutting him, it was time to put my card together. And obviously I had run the Whimsy Stamps Marquee die through my Gemini Junior with a piece of yellow cardstock. I used liquid glue to adhere that on top of the panel that I had stenciled with the clouds. And I did stamp the little buzzy trails for the bees on there before I adhered the Slimline, the Marquee die cut on top. Next, I adhered that to the front of a side folding card. And my Slimline card, I started with a piece of Neenah 80-pound cardstock cut to 8.5 by 7. I scored it at 3.5 inches on the 7-inch side, so the finished card is 3.5 by 8.5. Next, I played with the placement of the flowers and the bees, and I used liquid glue for the smaller flowers, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to use foam tape for the large flowers, and decided that yes, I did. So I popped up the large flower on the bottom with foam tape, and I popped up the bee with foam tape as well. For the middle section, I did adhere the large flower with liquid glue and the small flower with liquid glue, and then I used foam tape on the back of this little bee, who is actually sitting in the center of the flower. I thought that with him in a sitting position, I thought he would just be too cute to boot, sitting in a flower, so that's why I did that. At the very top, I adhered the small flowers again with liquid glue and added a little bit of foam tape to the large flower. Pressed those into place, and then I placed my last bee up in the top there, and he is also popped up on foam tape. Next, I added a little bit of shimmer to their wings with my Wink of Stella glitter pen, and then, true to form, I didn't think this all the way through, and I really wanted to add some type of sentiment in that center cutout part, but I was too afraid to stamp because everything was already adhered in place with foam tape, no less. So I decided to die cut the word hi 3 times from black cardstock. I did stack them up, and then I just adhered it into place on the front of the card, again with liquid glue. And that's it. That finishes up my card for today. Don't forget to click on the link that's in the description box below to visit the next creator on the hop. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.